Joining us from the Lincoln Journal-Star, HuskerExtra.com.
Have you ever had a show that you loved to join, held them close to your heart like a commemorative coin? Let me tell you a story of my situation. I used to join the best show in the U.S. nation, but all of a sudden some young'un came to be and stole all my thunder at 1620. His golf sure is a dope he wouldn't hesitate to lend. The boys at Unsportsmanlike Conduct told me he was just a friend. You got what I need.
He's just such a natural.
But you say Chris is just a friend. But you say Chris is just a friend. Oh, baby, you.
I think the sky's the limit.
You got what I need.
I don't know if you learn a lot of these things.
But you say Chris is just a friend. You say Chris is just a friend.
It was perfectly boring.
Chris Basnett, our Friday friend from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Baz, happy belated birthday.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate that.
Happy birthday, Baz. I just want to make sure that I say it, too, so you don't yell at me later.
I'll probably yell at you anyway.
Well, that's fair. That's a good point.
What did you enjoy at Elmo's?
Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
What did you enjoy at Elmo's?
What didn't I enjoy at Elmo's?
Great point.
Great point.
The shrimp cocktail, the Elmo Cola, 14-ounce New York strip, the mashed potatoes, the navy bean soup.
Wow, you went whole hog.
I went off. I regretted it shortly after that.
Well, yeah, but
walking back to your hotel, I imagine that was a little tougher than walking into the restaurant.
Yeah, I was asking myself a lot of hard questions on that walk back to the hotel.
Well, the reason, of course, you were there for Nebraska ball and Big Ten basketball media days. Before we get into tomorrow night's game, what was the biggest thing you learned about the upcoming season at Media Day?
I'm going to go back to the quote in my opening. It's you don't really learn a lot of these things. So, I mean, I don't know if I learned a whole lot. I think, Fred Hoiberg reiterated that he really likes his team. It seems like Nebraska has pretty good player leadership, which maybe is something that hasn't had a whole lot of the last couple of years as this roster has been in constant turnover. I think there's a decent amount of respect for Nebraska around the league and a decent amount of curiosity for Nebraska around the league at just how good they can be, because the potential's there, certainly. And we saw they were picked 11th in the media poll. And I think if you asked a lot of media members around the league, they tell you they probably wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska finished anywhere from 7th to 13th. I think it's just going to be that kind of year in the Big Ten, that kind of year for Nebraska. So the potential's there, and certainly I think Nebraska got its share of attention at media days, which doesn't always happen, especially at the basketball media days. So, yeah, I don't know that I learned a ton other than just hearing some things reiterated that I already heard, and so Nebraska's got a chance to maybe be something this year.
Baz, we're about to talk about the game tomorrow, and one of the talking points over the last few days has been about the crowd and about how big of an impact that the crowd can make. I wonder what you're expecting in terms of impacts from the college basketball crowd this year, because I think if you watch college football over the first month and change, I think that the home field advantage has been maybe a bit more pronounced than normal just because of the since we didn't have fans at games last year, and so I think there's kind of a new car smell to things. Are you expecting similar with college basketball, that maybe good home field or good home court advantages could become great home court advantages in 2021, 2022?
Yeah, I do. And I think back to last season for Nebraska and how many games they played at PBA that they lost, that they probably win if there's a home crowd there. I think in the Nevada game especially, where they were up, I think 7 or 8 points with about 8-10 minutes left or something like that, and gave it away, and we're rolling at that point. And they had a couple other games like that too in the Big Ten when they got in the conference play. So yeah, I think it's going to make a huge difference. And look, Nebraska's the type of team, the way that they're built, that if they do get rolling, it's going to be the type of offense, the type of basketball that's really easy to get behind. And we even saw it at the opening night, when Kesey Tominaga started splashing threes and things like that. And there was 6,000-7,000 people in there, but they were loud and they were excited. Nebraska's built to play in front of a rowdy crowd, in front of a rowdy home crowd, no doubt. So, yeah, if they're able to get it going early, and look, winning games is obviously the best home court advantage you can give yourself. Just make it tough to be beat at home. And if Nebraska does that, then look out, because I think this team is built to feed off momentum and let that momentum feed into the pace with which they play and the crispness with which they run their offense and the energy with which they play on defense. And John can attest to that at Creighton games too. It's a similar type situation. When they get rolling and that crowd gets rolling, it's a train running downhill. And I think that could be the same for Nebraska if they get going in front of the home crowd.
Baz, tomorrow night, where does Nebraska have the biggest edge in this matchup?
I think quarterback. I think Adrian Martinez is really, really good, and he's obviously playing at a high level. If he executes in the option game and in the run game like he has the past couple weeks, maybe that neutralizes some of the speed on Michigan's defense, and maybe it opens up the passing game, the play-action game a little more. I like Cade McNamara for Michigan, but he's not a runner, and he's not going to take a lot of risks with the football. So I think Adrian's a lot more dynamic than Cade McNamara is, and I think we all know it can be boom or bust with Adrian. But if it's boom, then it looks like it does last week, and I think Nebraska has a big advantage there in a game where otherwise I think it's pretty even across the board.
What type of help, Baz, do you think Adrian is going to need from the tailbacks? Like, is there a yardage that you would say if they can reach 80 yards, 90, 100, 125, whatever it is that you would say, that is going to put them and the rest of the offense in a position to win the game in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, if the tailbacks get to 100 yards, then Nebraska's going to win the game. Because Michigan's really, really good against the run, and it's just hard to, like I said, with the speed, it's hard to run wide on them, especially with a defensive end like Aiden Hutchinson. And again, that's where Adrian Martinez maybe opens some of that up for the tailbacks, and the option game opens that up for some of the tailbacks. But yeah, if Adrian gets that kind of help, where if those tailbacks can produce 100 yards, no matter what the combination of those tailbacks ends up being, I really like Nebraska's chances, because that means that Adrian is causing enough problems for that defense that is opening up holes for those tailbacks. So yeah, I think the magic numbers probably. And not that they have to get to, but if they do get to 100, I think Nebraska wins the game tomorrow.
You know, we have talked this week, Baz, about what a win would mean, not just for the program, but for the fans, just for the overall conversation that would be had around here, and certainly the dramatic change from the conversation that was had 2 weeks ago, certainly a month ago after the Illinois game. What would a win mean for the rhetoric that surrounds this program?
Yeah, it's the old saying, right? It's winning solves everything. And look, a win against Michigan isn't going to solve everything. It's not going to take away the loss to Illinois. It's not going to take away the collapse against Michigan State. Those things are still on your record. But that's a game that maybe at the beginning of the year, and especially after the Illinois game, you thought, man, Nebraska's got no shot against that team. But guess what? They do have a shot. And they've shown, you know, they could very easily have 2 top 20 road wins right now. So playing number 9 in their home stadium at night shouldn't be a scary thing for this team. And winning that game, and then you look at the next 2, Minnesota, Purdue, that's 2 very, very winnable games. Ohio State at home, again, you feel decent about that. Wisconsin hasn't been great this year, so going up there maybe isn't scary. And then, of course, Iowa at home to end the year. So, I mean, it sets up the rest of your season. It really does. And it goes from, you know, if Nebraska wins this game, and depending on how they win it, it goes from, well, if they win this, now we can start talking about a bowl game, to now maybe if they win this game by a couple touchdowns and look really good, it becomes, well, what bowl game are they going to go to? And again, a win tomorrow obviously doesn't guarantee anything for the rest of the year. But it's certainly, just kind of like last week, it kind of validates that this team is moving in the right direction. Certainly it would be a huge hunk for Scott Frost to get over, getting the win against a ranked team, against a quality team. And again, it sets everything up the rest of the year. There's nothing left on if you beat Michigan tomorrow, there's nothing left on your schedule, save maybe for Ohio State if they really get rolling, that really terrifies you. So, yeah, it can do a lot. It can do a lot for the rhetoric. And again, it doesn't take away what happened early in the season, but it certainly does set up what's to come.
What, Baz, when you're looking at concerns for Nebraska, what would be the bigger concern for you? The offensive line going up against a better front seven compared to last week, or special teams rearing its ugly head in a way that reminds us of Michigan State or Illinois earlier this season?
I think it's special teams, and I think it's special teams because that will play into what the offensive line is faced with. If Nebraska's getting backed up in bad field position, where they can't operate at 100% capacity as an offense, where Michigan kind of knows what's coming, and Nebraska's behind the sticks, then that defensive line gets a whole heck of a lot better, and they're pretty good to begin with. Aiden Hutchinson's an outstanding player, and I'm not exactly breaking any news there, but look, if Nebraska's adequate in special teams, then it's still going to be tough against that defensive line. There's no doubt about that. But it's going to be a heck of a lot easier if you're fair catching punts at the 30 instead of letting them bounce and roll to the 10 and having to be backed up and having to go the full length of the field against that defense. So, yeah, they're both critical matchups in both areas where Michigan has a pretty good advantage. But if Nebraska's bad in special teams, or Nebraska is what it has been in special teams, that's going to make that offensive line's job a lot tougher.
Chris Basnett, HuskerExtra.com, Lincoln Journal-Star. Baz, enjoy tomorrow. Enjoy the beautiful weather that we have, and we will talk to you next Friday.
Going to be a fun one, fellas. We'll talk to you next week.
Amen.
Later, Baz.
It will be a fun one indeed tomorrow. Also, what will be fun? Our new Friday tradition we call the Movie Club.
Movie Club!
I've been looking forward to this movie since, well, it's been about a year or so since we heard that it was in development.
Uh-huh.
The Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos prequel, showing some of the origins of your favorite characters, namely Tony Soprano and his mentor. This review will contain spoilers.
Spoiler alert!
So just be aware of that right off the top. That's coming up next. We are live at the Doghouse Saloon in Waterloo. We are taking your registrations for the tickets of great significance to an event of great significance at a stadium of great significance that's happening within the next 26 hours.
That's a lot of significance, it sounds like.
A lot of significance. And the only way you can win them is if you come here to the Doghouse, register, and then you're here when we draw, and we will be drawing in the 5 o'clock hour after predictions. Also, we have the $25 gift card to the Doghouse Saloon, which is, of course, your sponsor for One Beer Friday. Kent's Movie Club is coming up next. Doghouse Saloon, downtown Waterloo, is where we are on 1620 The Zone.